السلام عليكم أيها الأخوة الأعزاء والأخوات.
Peace be upon all of you, dear brothers and sisters. Talking about stability, it needs to be, first of all, talking about security. So there is no stability without having balanced security in our countries and in the region, especially. And the security that will lead as a result for stability, and this stability will lead for development and development for our societies, communities. For sure, whenever we are looking and talking about security, there is many things and many given facts linked to the security issue and case. But on the top of this, which is the unity of our societies and the will of the societies, and also being out from and being away from the groups that are trying and attempting to divide our communities to different segments that can harm our unity as a community and society, and going far from the idea of the citizen, and giving this as a given fact that the security situations needs to be first of all linked to the security of the community, and citizenship frankly is absent from many areas in our regions. The governance, let's say, and even education about citizenship and the right of the basic rights of the citizens. Naturally and normally, what is said about Iraq, that there is Sunnah and Shiite and etc. And also, it's just an example, like Iraq, there is no something does exist among the segments of the Iraqi communities, but just among some elite political segments. And about the unity of the society, we need to have some, let's say, some entities can be built based on the qualifications and competencies, and we need to start building the internal security forces and armed forces and the judicial system that can practicing the role of the rule of the law, and the independent judicial systems to be independent from any other political power. This is the second element about the giving facts of the security. And the third element of the security, to take all these and to try to avoid all these societies and communities from poverty and needy. And there is also in our areas and our regions, there is some retreatment or back down and increase of the poverty ratios, especially Iraq, that we have very rich natural resources. In addition to that, also there is another issue comes as one of the critical points in our countries, which is the external regional interference in our internal affairs and situations. And this happens in Syria and Iraq, and also in Libya, and in other areas, and in Yemen. Unfortunately, if we talk about the Iraqi experience or the Syrian experience, so we see that Iraq, after the settlement, after beyond the 2003, we didn't have only the removal of the power of the authority, but all the different institutions, public institutions, intelligence department, and GID, education, economic, and this created, unfortunately, a gap, created a gap that, and a huge gap, let's say, in Iraq, that forced most of the Iraqi citizens to hide in their areas, in their regions, or within their sects, within their tribe, after the end of the government, according to our understanding to what happened in Iraq. And this also raised, this gap was created for more intervention by their neighboring countries, especially after it became for the neighboring country. They had two status after the change of the regime. The first one is the self-defense from themselves and fearing from what happened in the future or what will occur. And also there was a statement between the international community and Iran. There was some very hot negotiations. So that's why Iran tried to intervene in the internal Iraqi situation to defend themselves from what can happen from the Iraqi territories towards them. And also the other thing is the weakness of the government, the state, public departments, and also the ruling situations in the region encouraged and urged others, and Iran included in this to intervene in the Iraqi internal situations, and launching from a basic theory that Iraq is the only country that is joining a very odd, weird, very critical, significant geographical situations. They are on the borders of one of the major Islamic countries, Iran and Turkey, and got also another regional dimension and got very good ties, relationships, and some varies between different segments, and it needs to be a power element and not a destruction element. These are harmful interventions starting to escalate and gradually going upwards after the absence of the states. And whenever I was selected as a prime minister, I tried to restructure the JID, the armed forces, the judicial, and restore everything. And to continue, what can I do to restructure all this and build all these public departments and agencies? But it was evaporated, unfortunately, and they became back down. And this launched also something very important and critical, and there is something very critical in this area, which is the gap that stormed Iraq, moved to Syria and to other areas. So that's why Syria now is a subject to what's happening now, and even the environment of Syria is proper as an environment for all these issues, even the Palestinian crisis and issue, and also the peace process also was hindered according to what happened in Iraq and Syria. And it was about to storm and to hinder, as we said, the Arab Spring, which is a fake, the Arab Spring. It was about to storm other regimes, including Egypt, whenever it was controlled by the people that are believing of the political Islam, and they are trying to manipulate the situations in Egypt. In another way, there was a revolution and demonstration by the Egyptian people, and they corrected the situation, ended by the Egyptian army took their role, and they set and they started and they made everybody stand for the elections, and the Egyptian people were back down to the path of the democracy and peace path. So this situation currently needs to pay more attention. Me personally, I'm not from the caller for the war with Iran, with Turkey, or with any neighboring country, or not from the war callers, especially with the countries of Nile that are getting all these lands. But we need to get the results, very important, critical in regard to the regional security. First of all, the thing that we did, if we don't achieve security in all of our countries individually, we can't achieve the regional security at all. This region is overlapped and is linked together. What's happening in Syria and Iraq, same like Lebanon, like Yemen, like Iraq, and what happens in Syria reflect on others, or even in Egypt reflects on the others. That's why, frankly, honestly, this links got some positive and negative points. From the negatives is the spread of this, let's say, like this epidemic and this dilemma to other countries. It reached to Syria, and it reached this level of destruction and from the bloodshed that we are witnessing on the beloved territories of Syria. That's why we have the regional national security that needs to be dominating, to have the regional security as a launch point, as a starting point also. Actually, it was an attempt, and I think my colleague Hushar Zebari remembers that. He was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I was the Prime Minister at that time. We launched an initiative, which is the initiative for the neighboring countries of Iraq, the regional conference, and it was hosted by President Hosni Mubarak. We thank him, under the supervision of the UN, also with the attendance of all the member countries in the Security Council of the UN and the European Union, also the GCC, the Arab League and the Islamic League countries and the GCC countries. There was many discussions were carried out in this conference. It was on the level of the foreign ministers, and we said to all the main blocs and the baselines, not for regional security, but for the national security in Iraq, and without any exceptions, there was an objection on one or two states, and I rejected that and refused that, and everybody, we set some basic points, especially on the internal level. They encouraged the national reconciliations, and they designated and delegated to the Arab League to start this conciliation conference, and it was the one orphan conference that can be named as a conciliation conference, and there was many agreements were signed in this conference to have a joint committees with Syria, with Saudi Arabia, with Turkey, reaching to form a committee with Iran. But some committees were formed. Unfortunately, this conference that it was supposed to be conducted from a while to another and to have like a periodic pattern, and this it wasn't achieved, and everything was ended. So that's why until now I think we reached to a level or to a stage everybody got tired. All the countries are now very exhausted and tired according to this intense situations, and according to the bloodshed, and due to the chaos that is now having an influence on the regimes in all these countries. Maybe this is the right time to initiate a new call to conduct a regional conference to discuss everything carefully and all the points, and set the points, and the one who's going out of the pattern of this or context of this conference needs to be out of these conferences. According to me, it's very necessary as a place now for the regional security and national security, and it can't be done through dreams and achieved through dreams, but through conducting meetings and having a clear points and going forward to improve the regional security situation. This is from one angle. From another angle also, we need to honestly to talk about something very critical point according to the political reforms in our countries. Now the world is changed and become smaller, and through like the telecommunication means and the electronic telecommunication means, it's open for everybody as a small village. So it's not anymore like as it was in the past about 40, 50 years ago, but we need to notice achieving and accomplishment of some political, social reforms in our communities to unify all these communities and not to be divided according to an external influence or impact or according to some internal elements. This is very critical point, will lead to the stability of the countries and leads to the stability of our region if we rely on the dialogue and debate and discussions and methods, and we encourage all these regional institutions that are looking for the balanced stability in our region. Iran needs to be whether a positive player and conciliate with others, or to be isolated through regionally clear situations. I was insisting all the time, like for Iran in Sharm el-Sheikh conference, to attend in spite of some refusal by some states or countries, and also the US. They said it's not allowed to Iran, and it needs not to be allowed to attend such conference in Sharm el-Sheikh. But I insisted honestly. That's why I hope to work together for the mature and develop a situation related to the national regional security. It's not reasonable or rational to make like Bahrain to to be exposed or subject to any internal or external chaos that can be impacted during to some external facts. And whenever we are united, and it was deepened, there was a deepen as it was done as this faked and also faked and injustice Arab Spring, but we need to plan for a real, true Arab Spring that take the ambitions of our communities and take into consideration security and safety for all the citizens in our countries, reaching to achieve the sustainable development. And thank you very much, and peace be upon all of you.